Thanks to my Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also get a deck review on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. It's the best way to support the channel.
Hello everyone. Okay, I know the title is a bit of a weird one, but hear me out. Everyone wants a unique fun pet deck that turns their favorite wacky piece of cardboard into the most important must-remove game object in play. It's kind of been my most requested video topic, talking about how to build a synergistic deck. The issue I often feel like people have is a lot of muscle memory when it comes to making Magic decks that leads them to poisoning their lists without even realizing it. Okay, well maybe poisoning is a wrong word, but still, I'm going to talk about how I jam so much synergy into my casual decks and how you can do so too. First though, let me thank this video's sponsor, Void Monster. Frequent viewers of the channel will know that I love Forrest ML's TCG apparel and accessory company, voidmonster.org, and work with them frequently. This is due to the high quality of art from Forrest himself and the high quality of the apparel. And somehow, this month, Forrest topped himself. I thought that last month's Swords to Plowshares t-shirt was going to be the crowning jewel of Void Monster t-shirts, but I stand corrected. This month's drop is a Dark Ritual t-shirt, and it's absolutely gorgeous. A must-have for any black mage out there. As always, it's available for purchase for only 1 week, with your window to order ending on September 7th, 12 p.m. PST, before the next drop from Forrest rolls out to replace it. I only use Void Monster playmats anymore, and the shirts are durable and comfortable. Thank you so much, Void Monster, for sponsoring this video. Now then, mentioning Swords to Plowshares, let's talk about it, Arcane Signet, and all those other cards that go into a deck first. Well, not Command Tower. That one's actually unironically an auto-include in any non-monocolor deck, and sometimes for Field of the Dead considerations, it also makes the cut in monocolor decks. Anyway, back on topic. Besides Command Tower, I feel the first step to building a synergy-heavy deck where every aspect of your list feels like it hums is that there are no staples. Purge that thought from your mind. Not swords, not arcane signets, not even Ristic. At least for bracket 3. Now, wait chat, don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. These cards are good. They will not be bad in your deck. I don't want to see any post on your little Reddit thread saying 3/3 elk called Ristic study bad or anything. What I'm trying to say though is that sword, signet, etc. might not be what your deck needs, and in fact might be cards that are holding back the synergistic feeling you crave for your list. Let's take Arcane Signet in my Judith the Scourge Diva list, a card I used to run. In this deck, the most expensive card is 5 mana, and often my best curves start with an early creature or two into my Judith or Alesha Who Laughs at Fate. In this deck, ramping with a rock does not set up my explosive aristocrat game plans like playing creatures can. And I already run a ton of cards like Mahadi and Pawn of Ulamog that already make more mana than I can ever dream of using. Even Gadrick into the right board can perform a great Mahadi impression. Yet still, when I was building this deck, I went ahead and mindlessly jammed Arcane Signet, and it stayed in there for a long time. Mostly because it wasn't that bad. But it was far from good. Now, rocks do belong in some decks. Just go watch my video about my Carmella deck if you want a good example. But you need giant plays that are crushing when they arrive before schedule to make ramping like that worthwhile. Not every deck needs an Arcane Signet. Add your cards with intention. This video isn't just about ramping though. Let's talk about everyone's favorite auto-include, Swords to Plowshares. Listen, card's good, cheap, exile-based removal with minimal downside. That being said, a Flicker deck, an archetype that often gets to touch a lot of cardboard, might find the creature nature of Solitude a lot more synergistic with their deck, without much added drawback at all. In a more budget vein, a Parting Gust, despite being twice the mana, lets you get a Flicker effect, protect your best game object, even from something like a Farewell, all on top of being an exile-based removal spell. Gifting a fish is hardly a drawback in Commander when compared to Limited, and you don't even have to gift the fish to the opponent you're removing from. There's more though. A Werefox Bodyguard can prove to be a healthy side grade to Swords to Plowshares in a Flicker deck. It's a protective tool and a Flicker tool in the same way Parting Gust is, but it also acts as an instant speed Banisher Priest. Now, is that removal mode as strong as Parting Gust or Swords? No, but in many games it will have the same effect. The ceiling being lower in this removal regard, but a lot higher in more synergistic camps is well worth it to me, which is why I recently cut Swords from Kellen in favor of Werefox Bodyguard. On top of all of Werefox Bodyguard's other upsides, Kellen also draws it when he wouldn't draw Swords. Simply put, Swords is a stronger card in a vacuum, but in the landscape of casual Commander, you can't evaluate in a vacuum, and Synergy can help propel cards like Werefox Bodyguard above and beyond their station. This is what I'm talking about when I said muscle memory. Despite these cards being good in a vacuum, there are cards that are just as good given the context of your deck. When you start construction of your list with the muscle memory additions of Arcane Signet and Swords to Plowshares because they are good, and you don't go back and dig deeper for more on-theme cards that fill the same role given the context of your deck, you are robbing yourself of that unique hipster pride in the favor of the safety of the generic. This is like using a placeholder lyric in a song as you figure out the melody, and then never going back to change it into something more fitting. Ultimately, I'm asking you to defend your choice of staples in your Commander deck. Do they actually produce play patterns you find fun? Do they actually support your curve and game plan? Is there a side grade your deck can use better than the more generic option? Or are you just running the Arcane Signet and the Swords because it was the thoughtless first edition you made when starting the deck cause card good? This is probably the largest issue with muscle memory editions like this. They don't stand out as cards you want to cut, since they always perform pretty well, so you never feel the need to find a more synergistic on-theme card to replace them with to make the deck feel more like yours and to give it more flexibility. Now then, staples are staples for a reason. They have a home in many decks, certainly. That being said, what I want you to take away here is that there is no one-size-fits-all card, except for Command Tower, and the One Ring, probably Demonic Tutor. Anyway, let's look to see where our resident example card, Swords to Plowshares, does fit nicely in terms of being a synergistic piece, rather than the earlier listed exceptions. Swords is super cool for a list in like a one-drop matters deck, where it's supporting Micromancer. A deck where double spelling matters, like one running Corey Steelcutter or Cosmic Grand Zenith, so that low mana value is important. Or maybe a deck where gaining your opponent's life is part of the theme, like a group hug deck, or a deck that turns life gain into damage, such as one running Reign of Gore or Tainted Cure. Of course, Swords is also just good in a draw-go deck, or a deck that spends a lot of mana during its own turn, and therefore can only hope to hold open that one mana. Now, if you can't find a good synergy piece for a deck, I do always advise running a generically good option to fill that gap in your list. Night's Whisper has made its way into a lot of my black decks that just lack on card draw, because it's an efficient 2-for-1 option that will always do what's printed on the tin, even if the rest of my deck is failing in a spectacular fashion around it. This is a piece of advice I want to stress, though, that should be taken only when all other options have been exhausted in terms of synergistic cards. Not for any moral reason or anything. I think format philosophy and spirit of the format should really come second to you and your table's fun, but I do think an over-generic deck can lead to the dampening of fun if you shortcut your deck building a ton by flooding your list with staples. Using them to fill gaps should always be fair game, but I always seek a more synergistic option first, even if they play their role slightly worse than staples, because it's fun to have that neuron activation moment of a card working better with the whole, rather than just working because it's good. Anyway, I've given my examples for why you shouldn't rely on your muscle memory to start a new Commander deck, but to compound my argument against staples first deck building, I went ahead and asked some other YouTubers to tell me their experience with cutting staples in the past.
For quite a while, I ran Mystic Remora in my Sharoom deck because I figured that the hipster gods would allow me one singular generic draw spell in my weird deck, but eventually I just got kind of bored of it. I ended up replacing it with Shorakai, which is also a powerful draw spell and much more useful in my particular deck, since I care about artifacts and sources of self-discard. I think it's quite common for players to run ramp that doesn't really do what their deck wants to do. Lots of rocks in decks that aren't mana hungry and don't care about artifacts, mediocre mana dorks in a deck that doesn't really care about creatures, and so on. Also, the fact that Walking Atlas is played in less than 1% of decks when it's one of the best colorless ramp spells out there is wild. Non-green players who like mana, take notes.
What it do? It's your boy, Quips and Guac. I actually have an upgraded Jump Scare Precon from Duskmourn, and that's all about playing a bunch of land and then manifesting Dread and then flipping those over. And that Precon actually comes with a Scoot Swarm. Now, classic Magic players know Scoot Swarm, terrifying. And in a Simic deck where you're playing a lot of lands, obviously it makes a big board, it's good. But in my head, that wasn't part of the vision. I would rather go with the synergy of like cheating stuff into play, jump scaring people and whatnot, using the Manifest Dread to get around casting costs and everything like that. So I cut the Scoot Swarm because I didn't want bugs. I wanted to just terrify my opponents. So I replaced it with a more cheaty card, Omniscience. Just because it worked on 2 different levels. Either I have enough mana, just because I'm Simic, and I can cast it, and then cast my entire hand. Or I manifest Dread, and I find it, and then I put it on the battlefield face down, play another land, flip it up, boom, free Omniscience, rinse, repeat, and just jump scare people that way. I really wanted to lean into the fact that I am jump scaring people, and nothing says jump scare quite like Omniscience.
Hello, it is Traveling Trinket here on my laptop microphone. I actually want to talk about my CEDH list, where I don't run Thassa's Oracle. You might think that Thassa's Oracle in a deck that is blue and CEDH that draws this whole deck wants to be in there, right? That seems like a no-brainer. But instead, I'm playing Blue Sun Zenith. And the reason is, by the time I draw my whole deck, Blue Sun Zenith is always already a win con anyway, because I pretty much will have infinite mana at that point. So I might as well have Blue Sun Zenith, which I can actually cast in the mid-game as an instant speed draw spell. And you could say the same thing about Aetherflux Reservoir in the deck over Thassa's Oracle, but Reservoir lets me win the game while I'm mid-storm without having to draw my whole deck, making it slightly more useful. So yeah, I don't play Thassa's Oracle in my blue CEDH deck.
Thanks everyone for sending in your examples, especially Trinket Mage that made it sound like a little kid who didn't want to wake up his parents. That does it for the video. Tell me, have you cut a staple for a more flexible synergy option that fills the same role? Has this video made you realize a card is overrepresented in your deck building? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, bye. Oh, I'm peeking a little bit. Peek. Let me turn this down slightly. Hello everyone. Oh no, now I'm really quiet. Fuck. Where's the happy middle? No, don't do that.